Welcome back to the Warwick F1 show. We're back after the summer break, which we definitely didn't keep up to date in the races, did we? No. We were very terrible at that. But the races kept occurring. Max Verstappen kept winning them. But not all of them. Yeah. But that's next week. Yeah. He won the two we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Zandvoort and Monza, a race or two races where Verstappen equalled and then broke Vettel's 9 consecutive win streak. Ferrari went from kind of not too terrible in Zandvoort to a really good performance in Monza. I think a performance that surprised almost everyone in that normally they eat up their tyres and they just seemed to be able to last, didn't they?
It was a happy surprise for most Ferrari fans to see them competing and to actually see some on-track action, which I'm sure we'll get to later between the two of them. But it was a better weekend, the second one. Charles Leclerc had some sort of issue in Zandvoort. It just wasn't his best.
I watched the highlights for my research for this podcast, and he seemed to pit again for a new front wing in Zandvoort, and I never really figured out why. I don't think I missed it when I watched it live as well.
Yeah, I think the car just had dreadful. I think there was some sort of collision early on. I think it was with one of the McLarens on the first lap.
It was probably when everyone was sliding around.
Yeah, and I think he then had some sort of floor or side pod or something wrong, which kind of lasted the whole way through the race to a point where he got overtaken by Liam Lawson in his first race in an AlphaTauri that wasn't that great.
Oh yeah, we need to do Liam Lawson as well.
Yeah,
because he is in F1 now. He's not back in F1, he's in F1. He replaced Daniel Ricciardo, who broke his hand, unfortunately.
In Zandvoort.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was after Piastri binned it.
Piastri binned it, and then Ricciardo was like, now I'm going to follow my fellow Aussie into the barrier.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it was either that or actually go into the back of Piastri. So I think it's...
And we do obviously wish Daniel Ricciardo the best recovery. Not quite back yet. It's looking like maybe Austin.
Yeah, Austin's looking the most likely.
I think he'll make sure he's back for Austin. It's like his second favourite race of the year now.
If there's one race,
Vegas.
if there's one race he'll be back for, it's Austin. If there's one race he won't miss under any circumstances, it's Vegas.
I think he'd just drive Vegas one-handed.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll do Zandvoort and Monza as well, which was entertaining-ish. It's more Monza. Even the Monza curse couldn't stop Max Verstappen.
No. But I think it was one of the more entertaining races we've had. It was the first time we've had a battle for the lead, I think, all season.
Yeah.
At some point. So that's positive, I guess.
Yeah, we're scraping the barrel. It's 2020. It's the 2023 F1 season. It's not the best in terms of battles at the front, but there are some good battles down the grid. Obviously, we had the Ferraris. We had Hamilton and Piastri, which will come along and talk about as well, who was at fault. I think everyone knows. Yeah, one driver probably more at fault than the other. Over the two races, are there any drivers that stood out to you? Obviously, maybe not the ones that we'd expect. Obviously, Verstappen winning both races should stand out. But anyone that you'd say not everyone was giving enough credit to over Zandvoort and Monza?
I mean, first of all, we're trying to think back almost a month now. So back at the race. So obviously, it's not fresh in the memory anymore. But obviously, we're talking about Fernando Alonso and Gasly podium at Zandvoort. Especially now, look at that Aston Martin, which has seemed to have fallen off ever since the summer break. Whereas obviously, a green car has been replaced by a papaya car, more or less. Yeah. But I think definitely. But I think and the fact that Pierre Gasly podium was definitely probably merit as well. But yeah, it was a pretty good mix of results in that one actually.
I mean, for me, Liam Lawson, it's obviously with the knowledge of the two races that have then followed Zandvoort and Monza.
Yeah.
But Liam Lawson he's jumped into what isn't the best car on the grid. It's almost probably the worst car on the grid.
Yeah.
And has instantly been competing in and around the bottom of the points. And for someone for any driver to do that, it's difficult. But especially one who's jumped into the season halfway through, into a car that is completely new to him, and he would join halfway through a Grand Prix weekend.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. And the fact that he beat Yuki Tsunoda, who's obviously he's been
getting a bit unlucky.
I mean, he's had his fair share of cousin, but he's not he's been bad this season anyway. He's done as much as I think he's done as much as he can do with that car in most scenarios anyway. So, considering, I think it's still a good thing.
He's come into the team at a point where the car's a bit more understood. They know how to set it up a bit more. I think that's definitely benefited him. And we'll get to it next week. It was the first time, I think Suzuka was the first time they could properly compare them, because I think he had 2 first lap DNFs or something silly, which obviously isn't his fault. You can't do anything about that.
Well, one of them was a DNS. He didn't even get to the grid.
So I think you can't really compare too much, because the first weekend was Zandvoort and he'd not really got in the car.
And Zandvoort, you'd say, wasn't even. It's with the weather, it's really hard to compare what
when you don't have any practice. You have one practice session. Yeah. Then you had Monza where he didn't start.
Yeah,
and then didn't start. Singapore where he had a first lap accident. So
yeah.
But I think another driver that we don't. Well, I think everyone talks about, but had a really good 2 races was Alex Albon again.
Yeah.
Double points. Williams, I think 7th and 8th. So it's you can't really ask for much more out of a team.
His qualifying in Zandvoort was incredible for. Especially considering the Williams these days, it's very much. I'm not calling it a straight line merchant car, but it's better in a straight line than it is around corners. But in Zandvoort, he puts it in the top 5, I think it was, or something like that.
Yeah, have a quick look.
And regardless,
he was 4th.
He was 4th.
Yeah,
he was 4th. Yep.
Yeah, in a Williams.
Ferraris.
Yeah, ahead of both the Ferraris, ahead of. Ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who went out in Q2, just behind George Russell, just behind Lando Norris, as well.
Yeah, Norris got unlucky with the strategy at that point as well.
I think George Russell had a better 2 performances. He outperformed Lewis both weekends. He got a bit unlucky in Zandvoort, I think, but he was comfortably quicker in Monza.
Yeah. Well, we're talking a lot about Zandvoort now, so why don't we'll dive straight into it, and we will run through the top 10 quickly.
I can do that.
Yeah,
I've already got it open. So, obviously, Max Verstappen equaling Vettel's record with at first. Just 3.7 seconds behind Fernando Alonso with the podium, followed by Pierre Gasly with a stellar performance to reach the finish 3rd. Sergio Perez suffering penalties that end up knocking him down to 4th. Carlos Sainz in 5th, Lewis Hamilton in 6th, Lando Norris getting unlucky early on with the rain strategy, but he still ended up dragging it to 7th place. Alex Albon 8th again. We were just mentioning that. Oscar Piastri with the 9th place as well. Not too shabby there, and Esteban Ocon ruling out the points. So Lance Stroll just missing out. Nico Hülkenberg in 12th place. He seems to be absolutely beating Magnussen a lot of the season.
Yeah. I think he's almost already won the qualifying battle.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's early. How many races have we got left? What?
5?
5?
We've got
plus the 2 that happened, but not happened in our magical universe.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah. And then obviously Liam Lawson finishing 13th, and even though obviously he didn't finish in the points, it is still an impressive considering the circumstances. Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo, Yuki Tsunoda finishing 15th, Kevin Magnussen 16th, and George Russell running at the back in 17th, with the 3 DNFs being Zhou Guanyu, Charles Leclerc, and Logan Sargent.
Yeah, and it was a weekend that was very punctuated by the weather.
Yeah.
Starting off in qualifying, we started out with a wet Q1, then Q2 went wet to dry, caught out a few drivers, probably most notably Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, and then did end up being dry by the end of qualifying. But when you do have that wet to dry, it is just about putting in those laps. And like we saw with Lewis, if you don't get it right, then there is no second chance, and you're out in Q2. When realistically, his teammate Russell was in third place, so it's a car that should be destined for Q3.
Yeah, you look at where they came last year, so it's a track that Mercedes have done well in the last few years, even with the struggles that car's had. So I think for Lewis to not even get out of Q2 when he's described by a lot of people as one of the best wet drivers of all time kind of shows the struggles he's having with that car. So I think it kind of highlighted and punctuated just his season in general.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what I was thinking.
And the other probably big stories from qualifying, Logan Sargent did a very Logan Sargent thing at the moment, which was get into Q3 and then crash. And again, perhaps with the with Singapore and Suzuka in mind, Logan he struggled a little bit, but Williams seemed to have faith in him as a driver, perhaps recognising that the car maybe isn't the best it's ever been. Alex Albon is a very, very capable driver who has been putting in performances for the last year and a half now, and it's almost refreshing, at least for me. Like, you look towards how AlphaTauri and Nick de Vries ended, that Williams are sticking with Logan Sargent, perhaps maybe in spite of some of the incidents that he's having. Obviously he crashed in qualifying and then did end up crashing during the race, but I think it was a power steering issue that took him out rather than perhaps an error of his own. I mean, Logan Sargent has not had the smoothest of rookie seasons. I mean, look at other drivers, i.e. Piastri, but that is Oscar Piastri. But Oscar Piastri, I think, is just you look at his junior career. His junior career is literally on the same level as the likes of George Russell and Charles Leclerc by winning F2 in his debut, and you know, we know how good he is as well. Thing with Sargent's generally a sort of, he takes his time to sort of really establish himself on the scene. He's not generally immediate with his impact. But yeah, we also looked at the past as well. I will go to AlphaTauri, Yuki Tsunoda, where he had a topsy-turvy first season, and obviously in a rare case Red Bull actually held on to him, and he's not, we don't see it. I don't think we'll see him in the top team anytime soon, personally speaking, but yeah, he's not been an absolute catastrophe, but I think it depends.
I think my concern is he's not shown any raw pace.
Yeah.
Like, even when the car's been good and he's not been crashing, he's just not been competitive. Like, I don't think he's got a point yet.
No, he hasn't.
His teammates consistently... It's not like Alex Albon's finishing 10th and sneaky, and he's been 7th, 8th, I think. Is he 6th at one point this year? Or
I think he might have been. I know he's got a few 7th.
Yeah,
at least
he's been comfortably in the points, and for him not to even have one, I think, would be concerning. And I think as well, just the amount of damage it's causing.
He's top of the the World Destructors Championship.
Yeah, and we may talk about this more next week, but James Vowles was actually saying that he's almost impacting the development of next year's car now, which would be a really big concern. So I think, he probably needs more time, but have Williams got enough funds and resources to give him that time?
I think for me, maybe because obviously they've got these new investors have come in, it does seem they're a bit more financially secure now. And honestly, I think it just, rather than maybe showing that Logan Sargent, he is a rookie. I think some rookies take time to bed in, and some are like Oscar Piastri. I mean, you could say like Carlos Sainz wasn't setting the world alight when he came into the sport, and now is he's a pretty competent driver.
I don't know, he was like 7th in his first race or something. It's horrible.
And don't forget his
teammate was Max Verstappen.
Yeah, but that's almost my point. Is Alex Albon is a very capable driver. I think with the exception of Red Bull, and we've seen now how there is a consistent track record of Red Bull second drivers to Max Verstappen really struggling in that car when maybe in their other performances, you looked at Albon at Williams, like Gasly at Alpine, Perez obviously with Racing Point before he joined the team. There is that pattern of the drivers are able to perform at other teams but maybe struggle at Red Bull, and Albon is an exceptionally capable driver that is able to make those, that it's almost like those little differences with the grid being as close as it is now, with obviously the exception of perhaps Max Verstappen. It is like a 10th can sometimes mean the gap between like 12th and 10th, and a chance to go into Q3 or a chance to go into Q2, and that is the difference. Obviously the crashes don't help, especially for a team that maybe doesn't have as much money as some of the other teams on the grid like Williams do, but seeing him be given another chance, if you go into next year and he's still doing the same thing, then I do think you have to start asking questions. But one season seems quite hasty to make a judgment
for sure
on Logan as a driver, and he seems to have a good attitude. He's got his head down. He's not coming out saying anything about the team, about anything. He seems to be trying to work on his performances, and if he still struggles next season, then maybe ask questions, but give him a few more races. Maybe Williams build a better car next year, one that's more consistently able to fight for points, and then you could probably better judge whether he is whether he is the driver that F3 and F2 perhaps suggested he was.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the sort of drivers from before, where a lot of rookies don't have that sort of stellar first season. I mean, we look at Lando Norris now. His first season wasn't anything to really shout about. It was a solid first season, but he was constantly outshined by Carlos Sainz throughout during the season, and even a good chunk of the second season as well. Of the second season, Carlos was ahead, but then you obviously, and then look at him now. Obviously, he's considered one of the top drivers on the grid comfortably at the moment as well. But it's also difficult to really see that because there's such a big gap in performance. You don't know how fast that Williams could really be, kind of, because you got that such a big gap. Because obviously, you look at other teams where you got where both drivers are performing like Mercedes. You still got an idea whether it is the performance of the car or if it's the driver itself just that good.
If I was Logan Sargent, I would count myself very lucky that Williams have no driver academy people in F2 at the moment. They're all in F3 and they're relatively good. If I was Williams, I would consider giving Jamie Chadwick a lot of simulator time, because if you can get Jamie Chadwick into F1, you'll get a lot of sponsorship and a lot of interest and a lot of really good publicity for the team. And do you really need an American driver that's just going to cost you a lot of money when you could have the first female driver in 50 years that's proving she's doing really well in Indy next?
Yeah, I think that is an interesting bet, and I think it will be one that next season will be a big discussion, because you look at how many driver contracts are out at the end of 2024. I think
there's only
it's like 16 or 15 or
there's
something.
like 15. There's only 5 for the contract going into 25 and only 2 after that.
And like
that's like Max Verstappen and who else?
I'd probably Max, Lance Stroll's infinite contract.
I just love how
one of the Ferraris would have.
I don't know how far
I don't think Leclerc does. I think Sainz might.
I think Sainz is 26. Maybe.
I think the Mercedes might be the only team that have a full lineup for 2025, because Lewis is committed till 25 and is talking about staying for longer. George Russell's obviously committed for longer than that as well. But no, I think we haven't really had a silly season this year. I think silly season in 2024 is about to be a really interesting one, and I'm sure Logan Sargent will be a part of that. We're going to move on to the race now, and we always pray for rain, and we always pray for rain right at the start of a race when it's going to be absolute carnage, and for once the prayers were answered, and it was, fair to say, chaos. I think we got the most overtakes on one lap ever, or something like that. Like, Zandvoort was the most overtakes at a race ever.
Something like that.
I think, yeah, it was like 40 odds on lap 2 or lap 3, like 170.
How is it
overall.
Zandvoort of all tracks?
I don't know. But no, I mean, that lap 2, lap 3, lap 1 to about lap 8 was complete carnage, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I may be wrong, but I think the race itself broke the record for the most overtakes.
Yeah,
Overtaking like China, which is...
I think it was China 2016, I want to say.
I think, was that when Max went into the side of Vettel?
That was 2018.
Oh, sorry.
That was like when Max had his 8 race run of just crashing into people.
And really annoying everyone.
Yeah.
I think it speaks volumes when Zandvoort is breaking records for overtaking.
Yeah.
So it was really enjoyable.
No, it was, and well, it was enjoyable depending on who you supported, because
if you're a McLaren fan, I don't think you want to look back on that.
Well, who were the winners? So the winners out of it, Perez.
Yeah,
definitely. It clearly was the correct decision to pit on that one.
Yeah.
That one, you, with the benefit of hindsight, you can always look back and say X lap was the correct lap. Lap 1 was the correct lap for this time. Perez pitted on lap 1. Zhou, I'm pretty sure, was running in first or effective first position at one point, or like second.
I think both Ferrari drivers, Leclerc less so because of the double stack, but I think they both gained because they pitted like a lap later.
I think Leclerc gained, but he then had to pit again, like we were saying, because
damage
he picked up damage from the first lap.
So basically, anyone that pitted on that one gained. Anyone that didn't pit on that one did not. Let's talk about that. Mercedes deciding to dither for, I think, what's it, lap 3 in the end.
After 4. It was late. Their strategy this year has actually been dreadful.
Oh no, Mercedes' strategy was never good.
They could just double stack.
Yeah, they could just get away with it. Like, that's one thing I've noticed over the past. They've done good strategies, like Hungary 2019.
Ferrari have done good strategies.
Yeah.
Hungary 2019, Spain 2021.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it next week, but I'd say Singapore this year was a good strategy.
Yeah, it was bold.
It was a good strategy that didn't end well, but that's for next week. But just generally, Mercedes, they take too long to make a decision.
Yeah.
And sometimes no decision is a bad decision, and that's especially the case when rain is falling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And because at some point, staying out actually didn't become a bad strategy. It took me a few days to realise that Alex Albon didn't actually pit.
No.
Like, he was on the slick tyres for the entirety of the wet stint. He ended up in about, 8th, 9th-ish?
He was 8th, I think.
Yeah, he was 8th because Lando was 7th.
So,
right.
It wasn't, obviously, George is running ahead of Albon, Lewis is running behind, so maybe it doesn't work for Lewis, but if they committed with George, he could be still running in 6th or 7th.
He probably would have got a podium, let's be honest.
Rather than he ended up in last, didn't he?
Yeah. I think there was more chaos in the end. And there was something that went wrong.
Well, he ended up in. I still think he ended up in last overall after about lap 10 or something.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
And it's just they didn't make a decision. Then they did make a decision, but it was the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And it was just a bit of a shambles from a Mercedes end. There's not really much else to say about it. It's just like. If you can, everyone saw it was raining heavy. Like, the camera cuts to the end of the lap, like just that they're all going through. Like, you can see the rain piling down. How do you not just think, let's go?
Yeah.
Especially with Lewis, who's in 13th, out the points.
I know. I think Lewis is the one you risk leaving out. I think you got to pit George. You can see everyone in front of you is pitting. You've seen Checo pit.
Well, no, I'd say George. I'd say lap 1 was fine.
Lap 1, yeah, but lap 2.
Lap 2, why they didn't pit baffles me. You've seen Perez is gaining 4 seconds a lap.
And the rest.
Max pits.
Yeah, gaining like 9 seconds a
yeah,
lap.
Exactly.
Absurd. Just flying.
Yeah, McLaren didn't do very well either, did they?
No, they stayed out though.
Yeah.
So it didn't work out for them. I think they got 7th and 9th. But still a double points finish, but I think considering they would have fallen down the grid anyway eventually.
Yeah, McLaren, they wouldn't. great, but they weren't terrible. They had to go. Norris had to go qualifying.
Yeah.
But I think Piastri struggled a little bit, probably from, I can't imagine the crash in practice helped very much.
Wouldn't have been ideal.
But it was carnage, and it was quite fun to watch. Not from Mercedes fans.
It was good fun. It made a nice change, I think.
It was. Then Logan Sargent had his unfortunate incident. That one, like we said, I'm not blaming him for that one. I think it was a power steering issue.
Yeah.
Williams. Also, the James Vowles, debriefs are great. Because,
they're really interesting.
They're so interesting.
He's actually informative and everything.
He's the most normal person to come out of Mercedes.
Famously of Valtteri X James fame.
Yeah.
The rest, or the middle part of the race, it was fairly Zandvoort, but it wasn't actually that uninteresting.
No.
There were enough overtakes and things like that.
I think it's because there was so much mix-up from the rain.
Yeah,
cars just coming through the pack. Charles Leclerc was just being... there's damage.
Bullied.
He had a floor damage. And he was just dropping through the pack, just lap by lap. I was oh look, a long straight. Another car's gone.
It's not even a long straight, it's just a straight.
It's silly, but...
No, but...
It was eventful.
Yeah, and I think it was one of, just overall, it was one of the best races of the season.
Yeah.
The weather that has been a real saviour of this season, I'm going to be completely honest.
Yes.
There's been a lot of wet events that have been more, perhaps not on the results end, but just generally. Austria, so long ago now, but Austria sprint. That perfect balance of was the slick strategy staying on it faster, was it faster to pit for Inters?
Yeah.
Belgium, where Oscar Piastri leads for a few laps. The qualifyings have been really interesting.
Every qualifying, it feels at this point.
Yeah.
Well, Italy was the first weekend that hadn't had rain since Baku in April. Until we were in September.
Was it the race that had it in Monaco?
Yes. Yeah. Because then, the race in Monaco as well, halfway through it starts raining, everyone starts clonking into barriers left, right and centre. And the rain did return at the end.
Yes.
And once again, I guess exposing why wet weather tyres are, again, useless. I will perhaps give them a bit more credit, and the rain was biblical.
It was, I think, even Max Verstappen was struggling on the wet.
Yeah.
It was just torrential.
Yeah, arguably the best driver in the wet is struggling in the wet.
Well, every driver is when you get aquaplaning. Well, I mean, Lewis went off. Both the Alfa Romeos went off. I think Paul Perez went off, and we'll discuss that as well.
When you get more drivers missing the corner than making it, it says something about the weather rather than the tyres.
And I get that, but I'm going to play devil's advocate against the weather, which is not a sentence I ever thought I'd do. But if you know that a rainstorm of that magnitude is coming in,
yes,
why would you just not put the wets on first? And we saw it with Esteban Ocon, who did that and was instantly these tyres are awful. If
that's why,
we could see the rain coming in from the North Sea. I'm sure, I'm positive the teams might have had even people on boats out in the sea, just measuring. They've got the radar, they know the intensity that's coming in. Surely, if the wet weather tyre is useful, they just put that straight on, they go slicks to wets. But because it's useless, essentially, it doesn't get the temperature, it makes visibility nigh on impossible to see for a car behind. They do the inters, they take those risks, and for at least one drive, or for Joe, which eventually ended up causing the red flag and put paid to a really impressive performance from him up until that point. Why would they risk the inters if they know how heavy it's going to be? And if we had a competent wet tyre, then you'd just go into the wet, wouldn't you?
I think no one was really sure exactly where and how heavy it was going to hit. I think everyone had different opinions. They're it was going to rain. We don't know how heavy. We don't know when. There was it's going to be in 5 minutes, and then something it's going to be in 20 minutes, or it's raining now, and it was.
the thing, everyone
Just chaos.
Everyone seemed to manage the strategy well. Was the thing. It's like it wasn't like lap 1 where you had people pitting over 4 or 5 laps. Everyone came in on basically the same lap.
Yeah, which doesn't really work in Zandvoort anyway with that pit lane.
Oh no, it's tiny. I don't know how they managed to all get out without any issues or anything like that.
Yeah, if they add another team, that's going to be fun.
It's just the wet weather, like the wet tyre, is so useless.
Yeah.
Because why would you put it on when an inter... Well, basically now we go inters until someone crashes, we do a red flag until the rain stops. It seems to be the general protocol for heavy rain at this point. But you look like...
Safety, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think is the key thing.
Yeah, and I mean, one of my friends who's just got into F1, he saw like a clip of the '98 Belgian Grand Prix. You know, the one with the massive,
Yes.
like the massive crash at the start, Schumacher, Coulthard, and you look back at that, you think like, look at how much water there is, and you think that could never happen today.
Yeah, but you also look at what happened when they started the race, and that was not safe.
No, yeah, and it is carnage, but you do want... There should be a line between we can't start, or we're not going to start the race because it's too heavy, and we can put wet weather tyres on. I do agree, Zandvoort was far over like what was an acceptable amount of rain. You could see how much was coming down, and it was absolutely torrential. But there have been other moments where it hasn't been raining as much, and you do think, why are we like not racing and stuff like that? Maybe like Belgium, for example, with the sprint race as well. But just building a good wet weather tyre is probably, it keeps the drivers safer as well, because they can use that tyre in that heavier rain and realistically clear more water, reducing the likelihood of aquaplaning and making it just safer for everyone involved, rather than having to risk it on the inter, which can have the consequences that we saw.
I mean, you basically just took the words right out of my mouth. The last 10 words was literally what I was going to say. But yeah,
I think part of the issue is with the new ground effect and sending all the air up into the, like, over the car behind you.
Yeah.
It just shoots all the rain into the air, which makes it impossible to see if there's lots of rain.
Yeah,
so it all just gets thrown up in the air because it's a big cloud.
And then the wider tyres as well.
Yeah,
which
so
I think
they displace more water, which is great, but you can't see because it's all going
that water
in.
just goes up.
They need to make, rather than having like forward grooves, I don't even know how it works, just have them like sideways, so everything just goes out to the side.
Well, I thought they were going to put those essentially like mud flaps.
Yeah, like
on
basically what they put on the
tyres
front, but over the back, I think.
Yeah, but
But I think that's going to re-water the track.
yeah, I mean, the rain the rain this season's been unprecedented. I couldn't count the amount of sessions that have been affected. Well, obviously, we had one race didn't even occur because it rained far too much.
Yes.
It's been a unique one this season, and hopefully they get a handle on the issues. But there was one other probably incident that should be discussed, and that was the Sergio Perez restart position. What do you think about that? So he spins it at turn 1, which is where most of the aquaplaning was taking place. He, I think, damages the rear of his car or like the front or something, and comes into the pits. He also clobbers the pit entry as he does that, does speed in the pit lane and get a 5-second penalty. But as he's doing his pit stop and driving down the pit lane to come back out, the red light goes on at the end of the pit lane because Zhou's gone into the barrier. They've thrown a red flag, and he obviously can't rejoin because you can't go out under a red light. So he essentially drops to 7th, but then they say he's 2nd. So I mean, what do you think?
I think they've been consistent with what they've done throughout the year, which is kind of take it back to the exact point that the incident occurred, and that's when the red flag effectively should have been in place from, and we'll put the start. Well, the order will be from there.
Yeah,
Which it doesn't and does make sense at the same time.
if they'd not done that, Nico Hulkenberg would have a podium, so I'm very against this rule. No. I get it. It's just, I guess it's a bit fortuitous that red light goes on, I guess if it goes on, if it doesn't go on, he comes back out in what?
Third or fourth.
Yeah, third or fourth. So yeah.
It kind of evens out, I think.
Yeah, it's probably, I'd say probably fair, but what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think the main thing is they've been pretty consistent this year. So,
yeah.
Like Will said, so it's like...
There will be absolutely no discussions of inconsistency regarding Red Bull next week. They were completely consistent in Singapore.
Yes.
Very, 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 very consistent.
They were consistent throughout the weekend.
This is called foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Anything else from Zandvoort? I think we've discussed Liam Lawson. That's honestly 13th in that race around Zandvoort, which is a difficult track in very difficult conditions. That was impressive.
It's had Imola not been cancelled, it would have been quite nice to see Max break the record at his home race. Because that would have been 9. Zandvoort was 9 and he broke it.
Would Imola have been the first of the streak if he'd won it?
Yes.
Because he won.
No, he won.
Was Imola before
No,
Miami?
he didn't win Baku, did he?
No, he didn't win, yeah.
So it would have been the first. Imola would have been... And I have no doubt in my mind he definitely would have won that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Max Verstappen, he wins everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he would have... Definitely would happen, because obviously Baku was 2 races before.
George Russ.
Yeah.
It was Miami, wasn't it?
Miami, yeah, so it went Bahrain, Saudi, Australia, Baku, Miami, and then Italy.
Okay, so Imola would have been second, yeah. Assuming he won it, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see
Well,
what
if he'd not won it, he wouldn't have broken the record.
No, he wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Would it have been...
It would have
been tied.
Would it?
Yeah.
No?
No. Yes.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
We've lost brains.
Yes, you would lose Miami.
But
you'd have the one that broke it.
Yeah,
so it'd be equal.
He'd equal the record.
Yeah,
That's the alternate universe.
Yes.
Other than that, George Russell, good performance, got a bit unlucky.
Yeah.
And
Carlos Sainz had a better weekend than
Yeah.
normal. He looked quite racy, which was nice.
I was saving Carlos Sainz for Monza
Oh,
discussions.
we'll get to that.
Yeah. That's probably everything from Zandvoort. I'd probably 9 out of 10. I thought it was maybe 8, 9, 8.5.
Okay.
I thought it was a really
a 9.
quite an entertaining race.
Yeah, it was
obviously being a Mercedes fan was immensely frustrating at the start, but
yeah, I mean,
from a purely objective hat, 8.5.
There was a point when Sainz was in the podium positions and he was ahead of the Alpine and he got overtaken by the Alpine.
Oh yeah.
So
we didn't talk about
that was
Gasly
really
much.
sad.
He
just had a really good
just
race.
Did well.
He just didn't make a mistake, basically.
Yeah.
Everything. It was kind of just a perfect performance from Gasly,
Yeah.
and just he
Not
got
much
rewarded with a podium.
Yeah.
Different.
It was Alonso's first fastest lap in like 6 years.
Oh yeah, it was like Hungary. I think Hungary 2017 or
Yeah,
something.
and his first podium since Canada as well, 2 months before that. So.
Wow.
Yeah, so Aston Martin on the way back up. Yeah, definitely.
That's also cool foreshadowing. So yeah, I'll go for 8.5. What do you think?
I'll go for a 9.
9.
I'll go 8.5.
I think top 3 races of the season.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I'm trying to think of
any that was good.
any of the Monaco. Right, Zandvoort and Monaco are going to be in our top 3 when we do when we categorise them at the end of the season.
Dear.
I think that says a lot about
this. Yeah, but this might mean that we get a really good season finale in
What?
Abu
It's
Dhabi.
just
Abu
gonna
Dhabi might be good.
torrential rain in Abu Dhabi.
Can we just? They have enough money. Can they just make it artificially rain?
We'll get sprinklers and everything.
Yes, I'm so down for that. All tracks should have sprinklers put at the side of them. If the race
Bernie
is
Eccleston in the
dead,
making.
you have to turn them on.
Yeah, but Bernie Eccleston, when did you get here? Yeah, no. Yeah, very good race. We're going to take a quick break now and we're going to come back and talk the second race of the 2, the Italian Grand Prix that took place in Monza. Welcome back 2 at the Warwick F1 show. We've just spoken about Zandvoort, and now we're going to talk about Monza, a race that took place just a week after, I think.
Yeah, back to back.
And Max broke the record for most consecutive wins. A record, I'm going to be honest, I didn't think anyone would ever beat again. But fair play. 10 in a row.
Yeah, it was
Only
quite
10, because he didn't win Singapore. But
yeah, come on.
10 in a row.
Get in there, Lewis.
10 in a row. No, Perez, it was again, I think most people expected Red Bull to be quite dominant, and they ended up with a 1-2, but didn't get pole. Carlos Sainz getting that pole position. A decent battle for the first 15 laps, and then
the tyres.
Then tyres became a bit Ferrari-esque. But then a very good battle between them in the final few laps. Behind them, Lando Norris continuing his just good run of performances. Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri had a bit of a coming together, which we will get onto. George Russell putting in a good performance. A very standard race of sort of what you expect from Monza.
It epitomised. This was like the most basic George Russell performance. Like, have no one around you. Your car's not great. Kind of have like a pretty good race for the car's standings, but have no one around you to have to crash into.
Yeah, I mean, we ended with the top 10, or not top 10, we ended with the out of 10 segment for the Dutch Grand Prix. We may as well start it with it here. 5 for me, just very average.
I go with like a 6.5. And there was some good wheel to the race.
No, I've been unfair. With the Ferrari battle and the battle for the lead, I'd probably go, 6.5, maybe even 7. I was unfair on it at the start. Ooh, magic.
I think it's one of the first times we've seen the DRS work as how it was intended to.
It was perfect.
So that it introduces late braking.
Yeah.
Which you got a load of, and a load of people.
Did you see that Liam Lawson overtake where he launched it from about a different postcode on Logan Sargent? What rating did you give it?
I'll give it a 6. I think could have been worse, but could have been better.
Yeah. And we'll start with probably the driver that impressed the most people. A driver that did well in Zandvoort, but we didn't mention him because I was saving him for this segment, and that is Carlos Sainz. And once again, slight bit of foreshadowing for next week in his performance. But over those 2 races, and then over obviously Singapore, which we'll come on to, as we said, exceptionally impressive performances, especially compared to his teammate, obviously Charles Leclerc, whom I think it's fair to say most people thought that Leclerc would be far ahead of him at the start of the season, and not even against Leclerc, just impressive performances full stop.
Yeah, I think it was a really impressive weekend, well, especially this weekend for Carlos, to get pole at Monza, defended really well throughout. Like, he held Chekhov for way too long.
But he held even Verstappen off.
Well, yeah, even Verstappen for
probably too long.
At that point, he'd led more laps than any other non-Red Bull driver, although technically he used to be a Red Bull driver. But the only caveat I will put on that weekend for him was that in neither Q3 run did Charles Leclerc get the toe. It was Carlos both times.
I thought Carlos was far enough behind everyone that the toe wasn't really becoming a thing.
I think it's still enough to help on the straight, but it doesn't affect you in the corners, I think was what people were getting at.
Yeah.
And then Leclerc kind of got almost sacrificed, as we saw multiple times.
Kind of worked though.
Yeah, it did. I'm not complaining. I mean, it worked, and we got racing at the end. I think in Monza they were quite evenly matched.
Yeah, well, we saw it at the end of the race that they were.
Exactly, and I think Carlos benefited from having the fresh air. It helped him save his tyres a bit more. There was some late braking and movement under braking.
I was about to mention that. His defending was
Max Verstappen F.
It was, yes, it's probably the best way to describe it.
And he's about to be a triple world champion, so can't really complain.
Yeah. No, his defending was probably borderline.
Yeah.
Within the limits of acceptability. Entertaining. We're very generous to Carlos Sainz here.
Yes.
But
we're talking about someone that did well that wasn't Max Verstappen.
Yeah, we have to be.
Yeah.
No, but I think Sainz it was a really impressive performance,
It was.
and not one up until up until that race, probably I would have said one of his best performances in F1
Yeah.
overall, like just in his entire career.
It was the most confident I've seen him since
Yeah.
he joined Ferrari. Like, even when he won at Silverstone, he wasn't like he shouldn't have won that race.
Yeah,
He got given the team's permission to win that race, basically.
and then you'd say even Perez and Lewis could have challenged him had they not been squabbling with Leclerc.
well, had his teammate not basically
Yeah, exactly.
150 lap old hard tyres.
Exactly.
No, he had a really good weekend, and I think it was his first podium of the season. Finally.
Yeah. That shocks me, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
was
George
so-
Russell doesn't have one yet.
What?
I don't think so.
Right, let me have.
Hang on.
I'm on the
Because
case. I'm on the case here.
when Piastri got his, he was. Has Piastri got one?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
not
Russell
in-
does have
but
a-
in
Russell
this
does have a
really
podium.
No,
was-
but even like in the sprint one, like including sprints, I think
Yeah.
McLaren were the only other team to have both drivers score some form of podium before that.
Russell has been on the podium
Has he?
with Hamilton and Verstappen in Spain.
Oh yes.
Is it bad that I cannot?
Wait, was
for the
Checo
life
not
of
third in Spain?
No, he was not.
Is it bad that for the life of me
He
I
was
cannot
fourth.
remember what happened in the
Unless
Spanish
it-
Grand
unle-
Prix?
Charles Leclerc had the most shocking weekend
Oh,
of
yeah.
his life.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
It was like 12th.
Yeah, unless he had a penalty system, but no, it was both Max on the
Okay.
podium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I was on a train when that race was on. That might be-
I don't remember that race at all.
No,
I
it
was
forgot that race
boring.
existed.
Well, yeah,
It's
I
like the
mean,
middle of exams, I think, as well.
Yeah, it was
True.
one of those that gets lost in the shuffle of this season. A lot of them. It's the rank. Can't talk. Ranking them. I got mixed up between ranking and rating, and this saying ranking for example. For some reason, ranking them might be a bit difficult by the end of the season. But I mean, science. It's just a really good performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, especially considering like third place isn't. I don't think a third place is enough about how good it was. It was just a solid weekend.
Yeah.
It didn't do much wrong.
Seems to be a driver that operates on confidence. As
Yes.
was then proven
Yeah.
again 2 weeks
It
later.
was a smooth operation.
It was.
It was very smooth. It was very smooth. He's one of those drivers that he reminds me a bit of Kimi, in that if he's really happy with that car setup, he'll be the better driver that weekend. Like, you know what you're going to get from him most weeks, and it's like he's not going to set the world alight, but he'll be like there, like Kimi was in like 2017-18. But then when that car is in that perfect slot for him, he will deliver those performances. You're like, oh wow, he is a really top driver.
Yeah. Other than that, Perez did his usual underperforming qualifying, get that car back to where it should be during the race. George Russell, like we've said, just existed
He's just
on his own plane and being for about 50 laps.
Yeah.
Piastri, Hamilton, yeah, that's Lewis's fault.
Yeah.
That's very Lewis's fault.
Yeah.
I can't believe there was a debate about it at the time. I was like,
I don't think there was much.
no,
I
but
think-
it was like on the initial in the initial shot, it was hard to tell. And people were like, oh no, Lewis isn't a fault of Team LH. Like, no, and then the replay literally shows him go, no.
I'm a Hamilton fan. I'm willing to admit when he's at fault. Yes, it was incredibly his fault. And I guess maybe we'll open this can of worms and we'll explore it more next week, because it did become a big thing next week into Singapore and even perhaps into Japan as well. Hamilton gets a 5-second penalty for the event, or for the incident, sorry, but is able to overtake Norris, overtake Albon, and make that 5 seconds
Yeah.
up
Absolute.
and makes it obsolete.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do the whole conversation now, because that'll be a big talking point next week. But what are your initial thoughts on that sort of thing? Because it is interesting, and especially with the last two races, it's that, as I say, we'll talk about next week. It's becoming quite a big conversation about whether 5 seconds or that sort of penalty is worthy, perhaps, for the punishment that for the incident.
I don't think 5 seconds is enough anymore. But there's big enough gaps between like the top teams that everyone gets raced out by 5 seconds in the end.
think the other issue you have is, I know people don't like doing it based on the actual effect of the accident, but I do think that needs to be considered, because ultimately Oscar Piastri was having a really good race.
Yeah, running
and then,
points.
Yeah, and then just had to got a load of damage, had to pit again.
Yeah, and what, ended 15th or something, or
Yeah,
14th.
and like at least in that case, I think if you force the other driver to pit, you should at least have a drive-through. Like
Yeah.
you should have to sit. You should have to replicate what that other driver is forced to do. If it's solely your fault, if it's like a racing incident and you have to kind of give blame to someone, then like 5 seconds seems about right.
Yeah.
Because it kind of works itself out. But if it's clearly your fault, like it was in this case, you've made someone pit, you should have to go through the pits with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think agreed as well. It's just I know how scared the FIA can be at times with taking that incident into account. We've seen it in the past before. Cough, Silverstone 2021, but yeah, but I mean, yes, he may not, but Lewis may not been completely at fault, but he should have got a harsher penalty that race. 10 seconds was not enough considering the severity of the incident, in my opinion. But obviously, that's a whole. I don't want to open the can of worms. I don't want to bring back nightmares.
We've sort of clicked open the can of worms and then we'll open it fully.
Yeah.
When we discuss Singapore.
A
A little teaser for next week as well. Any other incidents before we come on to the final topic of discussion? Anything about the race that perhaps we're missing?
No, probably Alex Albon 7th place again, just a good performance. Fernando Alonso 9th, the Aston Martin dropping off
Considerably.
Valtteri Bottas getting a point.
Well done.
Yes.
In an Alfa Romeo.
I wouldn't be shocked if he's not here.
They have had the most anonymous season in human history. They've done nothing of note.
I genuinely think they've had a worse season than AlphaTauri.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like AlphaTauri have had like memes about them.
Yeah.
But memes now the category for a good season.
But they foreshadowing. They may or may not have more points than drivers.
Let's go.
Progress.
No.
They have 5 points. They have more points than drivers now.
Yes.
Just about. My gosh.
Yeah.
For now.
Then we also got Liam Lawson just dropping out the points. He was 11th.
Yeah, Lawson,
Had a
good
good
performance. Discussed.
Yeah, Piastri was 12th actually.
That's quite a good recovery, actually.
That was a very good recovery.
Then the DNS.
I think Logan Sargent did quite well. I think he collided with someone in the end.
That sounds about right. I don't even know.
He was 13.
I actually don't think it was his fault. Who came 14th?
That doesn't sound right.
Joe.
I think Joe might have. How far is there a significant gap between the two?
1.5 seconds.
I think Logan might have been knocked off the
Maybe.
track.
And then Sargent was 5.5 seconds behind Piastri.
Yeah,
Probably, I don't remember.
I don't know why, but that sort of rings a bell.
Because Gasly was 15th, Stroll was 16th, Hulkenberg and Magnussen were a lap down. Because Haas have an absolute stinker.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about Lance Stroll next week as well.
Yeah,
Because
and then Ocon had a DNF, and Alpine DNF'd inevitably, and then Tsunoda didn't even start the race.
He's had 3 DNFs in his career. That's just woefully unlucky.
Yeah.
I don't think Lewis has
Lewis has had that many.
He's had maybe 1, I think.
I don't think Lewis has had that many DNFs since he joined Mercedes.
No, I think there's less than 10. I want to say.
Yeah, something silly.
Even with collisions and stuff like that.
It's had like 1 reliability issue in 10 years.
2018 Austria.
Yeah. It's just a skill issue from the rest of the grid. Not gonna lie.
It's a skill issue.
But speaking of Mercedes, actually, good segue. Well done.
Yes.
The comments after the race. So Max Verstappen, we probably haven't given enough credit to him for breaking the
Winning
record.
10 races in a row is unbelievable.
Incredible. Like, as much as you may not like him, may not like how he races, may not like sort of his personality, doesn't matter. Winning 10 races in a row with the amount of variables in F1, and particularly the amount of variables that we've had this season with the weather, with other incidents, does not matter. Winning 10 races in a row is an incredible achievement. And one, I said at the top of the show that I didn't think I'd ever see Vettel's 9 being broken. I can honestly say I'd be exceptionally shocked if this 10 streak wasn't broken. if this 10th streak, was broken, and if it is broken, I wouldn't be surprised if Max had somehow found a way to win 11 in a row.
Yeah, I think at the moment, if anyone's going to do it, it would be Max.
Yeah.
Mainly because the Red Bull are the only team I trust at the moment to have a car that could win that many races.
I think Red Bull are the only team that sort of had that driver structure in place as well, where when they do have the car that can win that many races, it will be one driver as well.
Yeah, it does take me back to the start of the season when we were like, we might have a title fight.
I'm very happy I never thought that.
I didn't. Yeah. We were having reasonable discussions on this podcast about it. So, how long does it last? It doesn't.
Guilty.
Foolish person.
Yeah, at least I was trying to drive a small
sucked into the Checo hype.
Yeah. But Mercedes weren't of that same opinion, were they?
No.
Specifically, Toto Wolff was not the most impressed, saying that the record is for Wikipedia and it doesn't really matter. He doesn't really care about it or think it's that impressive. Something along those lines.
I always love it when people say I don't care about it in front of the media. It's like, why are you thinking about it then if you don't care about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it kind of tarnished. Mercedes, for me at least, were always, they weren't like the good guys, but obviously that was the big battle, but they were always the ones that maybe weren't like not complaining as much.
But they were always winning though.
Yeah, and I guess they were winning, but it kind of tarnished, like, just sort of congratulate them. You don't have to say those.
I think this is on the back of Lewis just basically slating half of the grid, saying that all of Max's ex-teammates were useless.
Yeah.
Which didn't come out very well when they got out-qualified by half of them.
Oh yeah, that was the Lewis and Max.
Monza.
That's when they suddenly started getting really chippy with each other.
Yeah. So Lewis kind of started, he had like an interview with Sky basically saying, I never had this opportunity, like my teammates were always closer. Valtteri Bottas doesn't exactly.
I will defend him here in that if you just look at the records of Lewis's teammates versus Max's teammates,
yes,
you've got world champions, like multiple world champions, race winners.
Yeah,
Heikki Kovalainen.
Heikki Kovalainen, Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, but
who literally had to give up races for him to win titles.
I think Lewis's teammates have been better than Max's teammates.
Yes,
but I wouldn't even say the teammate battle. Like it's relevant
nothing to do with,
but it's not
as much.
It's not that equivalent.
No. Because I think even when Checo's been on it, Max has just been on it more.
Yeah. But look, I don't think Lewis was wrong to say my teammates have been better. I don't think
I think it's wrong of him to do it whilst he's on the grid with half of Max's teammates.
Yeah, probably not the best idea in the world.
Yeah.
When you say that as well. Like you look at some of the teammates Max has had. Like Alex Albon, very good driver. Everyone's constantly praising him. Carlos Sainz, really good driver. As we've said this weekend.
Pierre Gasly, race winner.
Literally got a podium the week before.
Yeah.
It's an interesting comment to make.
I don't know. I think it was one of those where maybe the media might have led it on a little bit and it kind of blew out of proportion.
Yeah.
From what it maybe needed to be.
But I think Mercedes have become quite hypocritical.
Yeah.
Complaining about people winning so many races in a row. And we were looking at this earlier about how many races in a row they would have won had they not had the crash at Barcelona.
Yeah.
It would have been 21 races in a row. And they're complaining about Red Bull winning, 15 was it? Or 16?
It was 15 in the end, I think.
Yeah.
Was it? No, I think the record was 14.
And
then it was 15.
Yeah. Which I think for them to complain about that is dubious.
Yeah, it's not a gracious way.
No, just accept that they've been better than you this year, and that Adrian Newey is just a massive genius.
I think that was it. I think it was more it was a bit ungracious in defeat. In that night,
it's been bitter, isn't it? So
yeah.
At the end of the day, I don't. Yeah, he just shouldn't have said that at the end of the day.
No.
I don't think.
Yeah. So, what? Any other views on the incident? I mean, it was a bit ungracious. Does he need to say it?
No.
No.
I mean, just.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't need to say it. There's no need. Just say like it's a really impressive achievement. Hopefully we'll be back. He could have said, "Oh, hopefully Lewis or George will break this next year," or something like that. And people know, "Oh, that's really good. Fighting spirit. We want to see like more competition at the front." You don't need to go out and say, "No, it's pointless. We don't care." When he was just really salty after his team had a bad race.
I think it was just the end of the whole weekend where it had been a bit like back and forth for seemingly no obvious reason. Like it just kind of sparked out of nowhere, that whole teammate debate.
Yeah.
And then I think it just sort of brewed from there and maybe just didn't end on the most civil of notes in the world.
Yeah, because they've always been civil, those two teams.
Oh yeah, but like,
Yeah,
if we get another title battle between the two, I think.
I honestly think George would stop Lewis from winning the title.
Well, that's more foreshadowing. Which that was
I actually think he would actively take Lewis out.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, no.
yeah.
Hopefully not.
Oh.
Well, that's 2024. We're still in 2023. Are there anything else you want to add? I think that kind of ends Monza.
Yeah, I think Monza's been covered. I think.
Well, that was end of Monza. Was the end of Max Verstappen's winning streak, but that's a story for another time.
An excellent story.
An excellent story full of thrills, spills, and barriers.
Yes.
And then Max Verstappen returning to form, but that was always going to happen. Yeah, that has been everything for this week. We've looked at Zandvoort and Monza. As we've been saying throughout, we are going to be looking at Singapore and Japan next week. We've been saying it throughout, obviously. Singapore, first non-Red Bull win of the season. Obviously, Japan, a bit of a return to form, but a lot of other things to talk about. Apart from that, thank you to Will and Chinmay and myself. I'm thanking myself for
Modest as ever.
coming on. I'm always modest. I think that's everything. Unless there's anything else we wanted to add quickly.
No, I don't have anything else.
Yeah. Any F1 Society promo you want to do quickly?
Oh, yeah, we've got our...
Yeah,
well,
but
make sure to come to the Clarendon when the races are on.
yeah,
If you're freshers that aren't new, that haven't listened to this podcast before.
yeah. I think the first one will be Qatar.
Next weekend.
End of week 1, so should be late afternoon evening race. So
6 p.m. start.
Oh, we're getting into that chain of
The
races.
best time.
The evening races.
yeah.
Oh, it's what day? Because you can sit and watch the football all afternoon. Then you got the NFL and the
I can watch
F1
Red Zone on my phone and the
Yeah.
F1 on the
Yeah, it's
screen.
great. What's not to love about winter?
Now
Yeah.
we've got
And the Cricket World Cup is starting next week.
Yeah. Cricket World Cup.
Starts this Thursday.
And the
That's
Rugby
when we're
World-
recording.
and the Rugby World Cup still on.
Yeah, England are actually through.
Yes, we are.
South Africa aren't.
So are New Zealand. Go me. I
Is
mean,
England through?
I think so. Effectively, they're not going to
They
lose.
have to be Italy yet.
Oh, but yeah, that's going to be difficult. It's going to look really awkward when if it's released in like a few days' time and we've lost it. No, but it's an F1 show, not a general sports show, and we will be back next week to look at Singapore and Japan. Thank you for listening for this week. Thank you to Will. Thank you to Chinmay. I've been Will as well, and thank you for listening.